Carlos Pineda here with us on the program. And, Carlos, you've been down at the University of Miami the last few days. My first question, man, what's the mood been like down there on South Beach?
Well, BJ, there was a lot of anticipation going into Al Golden's first year, the first week and a half down here, and just today, very subdued. The players coming out, I think they were in shock to see, their head coach being mobbed by the media this morning, as there was more than the usual local media down there. It's just uncertainty. It's in the air. These players, they don't know what's going to happen next, and Coach Golden doesn't know what's going to happen next. So it's definitely one of the things where it's a subdued climate down there on the Coral Gables campus.
Yeah, and it is a crazy situation. Now, when you look at the ESPN reports, the AP reports, I've heard this on CNN and, all the big networks. You hear money, cars, yacht trips, access to homes, jewelry, televisions, nightclub outings, sex parties, meals. I even saw a report that said an abortion was paid for. And sometimes with some of this, hyperbole comes into play. Being down there in South Florida, being around the program, do you get the sense that the Miami folks feel like what's being thrown out there does have kind of some tangibility, credibility to it, and that we are looking at something this big?
Oh, definitely. Everyone, the defense is, he did cheat a lot of people out of almost $1 billion, but, the guy has evidence, and until we find out what it is, because right now it's all pictures and his recollection, but until the NCAA goes through the investigation and finds the hard listed facts, it seems like this guy has it all together, 10 years worth of documents, receipts and everything. He's a bitter guy, and he has nothing to lose right now. He's in jail, going to be in prison for 20 years, so he's letting it all out in the open, and, he has nothing to lose, like I said before.
We're chatting with Carlos Pineda of SouthernPigskin.com, covers Miami, some of the Florida schools, and he's been on top of this. He's been down at the school at the University of Miami. He's been talking to folks, and he's kind enough to join us here on the drive to help us decipher this situation. Now, Nevin Shapiro's been talked about all over the place today. Jim Rome show, there was like a 30-minute segment just on him this afternoon. How did he come to power in this role as the super booster down there in Miami, and was he really as prominent of a figure at the games on the sidelines as we've been told that he is, or was, excuse me?
Well, no. Nevin first became a living scholar back in 2001, but his influence really didn't begin until after the championship season during the team's football banquet dinner in December. That's when, he became more influential, and little by little, giving away free tickets to the Heat game, started giving, once he was introduced to Willis McGahee, then more players, according to the story, he was introduced to more players, and eventually it became the players were coming out to him saying, hey, what can you do for me? And, some players are saying that they didn't know who he was, but according to this, most of these players knew who he was, and, he was a very, he had a lot of bravado and, very cocky, if you will. So it was hard to ignore him being as influential as he was.
Carlos, I know we're in the early stages here of news coming out and us trying to, get information together on our end, and the NCAA trying to get information together on their end. So the media, the NCAA head's still a-buzzing. But what do you think the ultimate result of this is going to be? The death penalty, I don't buy into that. I don't think the NCAA is going back to that after the SMU stuff. That would cripple the ACC if Miami was handed down the death penalty. But what do you think ultimately the sanctions are going to be? Are we looking at multiple years of bowl bans? Or, what do you think the consequences are?
I agree with you. I doubt that the NCAA will go that extreme to the death penalty, but it's going to be strict. It's going to be something far worse than what USC just faced, which was the 2-year bowl ban and the loss of 30 scholarships over 3 years. It may be 5 years for Miami, and you take that maybe 40 scholarships, 45. I don't know, but it is extreme. You're talking about 73 players that were involved in this, including 12 current players. It's a pretty serious matter. It's nothing that can be thrown under the rug here. Miami, depending on what the NCAA finds in the investigation, it's a pretty serious matter.
Carlos Pineda here with us on The Drive, doing a great job covering the news that's breaking day in, day out here at the University of Miami around this scandal. You mentioned some players mentioned on this year's team. How is this news going to affect Miami 2011, as this is a team many felt like, I guess, going into this, could compete with Virginia Tech maybe in the ACC this year, make a run at the ACC championship game, and this has got to be a devastating blow in terms of momentum as we're 2 weeks out from the start of the season.
Oh, it sure is. I mean, you're looking at 7 defensive starters of the 12 players mentioned by Shapiro. That's your whole team right there, at least on the defensive side. And then on the offensive side, you do have Ja'Cory Harris, who, according to these reports, exchanged about 90 text messages with Shapiro. So he's on that list. Coach Golden said this morning that until the NCAA brings something down on them, they're going to continue to practice. But knowing Coach Golden, you have to assume that these 12 players will be ineligible to play once the season starts at Maryland on September 5th, even if the NCAA hasn't come down to a conclusion yet. He will more than likely not play those 12 players.
Wow. Carlos Pineda, SouthernPigskin.com has been our guest. Again, if you want to follow this Miami situation, read Carlos there at SouthernPigskin.com. We appreciate the insight, man. Good job staying on top of it, and good luck with all this. It's probably only going to get crazier down there in Coral Gables here over the next couple of days.
It probably is. Thanks for having me, BJ.